Welcome to Community Rule Part 2, otherwise known as the Charter of a Jewish Sectarian Association, or the Writings of Elijah, or the Order of the Ancients. So if you haven't tuned into Part 1, I would recommend having a gander, or else you're just kind of starting in the middle. We are actually going to be starting in the 7th column of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And we are just going to get right in. And if he has spoken angrily against one of the priests enrolled in the book, he will be punished for 1 year and shall be excluded under sentence of death from the pure food of the many. However, if he had spoken unintentionally, he will be punished for 6 months. And whoever lies knowingly shall be punished for 6 months. Whoever knowingly and for no reason insults his fellow will be punished for 1 year and will be excluded. And whoever speaks to his fellow with deception or knowingly deceives him will be punished for 6 months. And if he is negligent to his fellow, he will be punished for 3 months. However, if he is negligent with the processions of the community or the Yahad, achieving a loss, he shall replace it blank in full. And if he does not manage to replace it, he will be punished for 60 days. And whoever feels animosity towards his fellow for no cause will be punished for 6 months, up to 1 year, depending on the translation. I know this sounds harsh. These are harsh rules, but I guess you know that if your parents set the rules for the house, whatever, if you're living under their roof, you go, with their rules, or else, there are punishments. And one of the punishments is to exclude you, right? All right. And likewise, for anyone retaliating for any reason, whoever utters with his mouth futile words 3 months, and for talking in the middle of the words of his fellow 10 days. Guys, I would probably get in trouble. Again, as I mentioned in the last section, I do interrupt and I really work on it. I try my hardest to work on it. I do that. And again, my husband and I finish each other's sentences because one might pause and the other one might have a better thought and processes it faster than the person originally talking. So I think we're all guilty of that. And this is something that they really took seriously, right? So some of these laws, they had to add probably because they had issues, right? So a town might have certain regulations, but because they have to deal with certain things, occasionally they often will write it into their ordinances, right? This is exactly what this group is doing. They're probably seeing some situations going on and they have to create rules for those ones that are commonly, misunderstood or, not taken seriously. These regulations had to be added for protection of those who were sincerely trying to make it in this group, right? They wanted to be with like-minded people, but there are rules that needed to be applied. All right. Let's see here. And whoever lies down and goes to sleep in the session of many, 30 days. Don't fall asleep, guys. And the same applies to whoever leaves the session of the many without permission, or falls asleep up to 3 times during a session. He shall be punished 10 days. However, if they rise up, blank, and he withdraws, he shall be punished for 30 days. And whoever walks about naked in front of his fellow without needing to shall be punished for 6 months. Obviously, this had happened, right? They had to write it into their ordinances. And the person who spits in the course of a meeting of the many shall be punished 30 days. And whoever takes out his hand from under his clothes, or if these are rags which allow his nakedness to be seen, he will be punished 30 days. Well, yeah. Keep yourself fully clothed, folks. And whoever giggles, it says inanely, but I'm pretty sure it meant insanely, causing his voice to be heard, shall be sentenced to 30 days. And whoever takes out his left hand to gesticulate with it shall be punished 10 days. Guys, I'm wondering if this is flipping someone off. And that's my theory of this, right? If your flesh gets involved, often, you see people flipping others off. And I think this is kind of along the same lines, right? So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking it's saying here. And whoever goes round defaming his fellow shall be excluded for 1 year from the pure food of the many, and shall be punished. However, who goes round defaming the many shall be expelled from their midst and will never return. So, if you're bad talking the group, they're probably not going to let you back in. That's very legitimate, right? Very legitimate. And whoever complains against the foundation of the community, or Yahad, shall be expelled and will not return. However, if he complains against his fellow without cause, he will be punished 6 months. The person whose spirit turns aside from the foundation of the Yahad to betray the truth and walk in the stubbornness of his heart, if he comes back, shall be punished for 2 years. During the first year, he shall not approach the pure food of the many. So he's starting all over again. Remember, there was the 1 year period of testing to see, if they want to do it, or if you seem to be okay enough to join. And then they also had that second year. Well, this is a person who was punished and had to start the whole process all over again. Okay. Blank, and during the second he shall not approach the pure food, the drink of the many, and shall sit at the back of all the men of the Yahad. This is like getting punished and, sitting at the kids' table until you can be trusted again. That's pretty much what it sounds like to me. When the days of the 2 years are complete, the many shall be questioned concerning his affairs. If they admit him, he shall be enrolled in his rank, and later he will be questioned in connection with judgment. Blank. However, anyone who has been in the community council blank for 10 full years, blank, and whose spirit reverts to betray the community and go away from the presence of the many in order to walk in the stubbornness of his heart, will never return to the community council. If you've been with the community for 10 years and you talk against the community, you know what the community is all about. You know some information that others aren't privy to. And so if you are out there defaming it, they don't want you back, right? It's a lot like the fallen angels. They chose to leave. They had been there for a very long time, and they chose to leave on their own accord, and they knew the choices. They knew the prophecy, and yet they did it anyway. And so these are the same types of laws that are being laid down here. And the person among the men of the community who fraternizes with him with regard to his purity or his goods, who blank the many, and his sentence will be like his, he shall be expelled. I know that sounded strange, but that's just the blanks being filled in with presumed words there. Okay, column 8. We are on page 128, and if you are following along with Martinez, they're page 114. Just so you know, that's what that other number up there is. In the community council, there shall be 12 men and 3 priests, perfect in everything that has been revealed from all the law to implement truth, justice, judgment, compassionate love, and unassuming behavior of one to another, to preserve faithfulness in the land with firm purpose and repentant spirit, in order to atone for sin by doing justice and undergoing trials, and to walk with everyone in the measure of truth and the regulation of time. When these things exist in Israel, the Yahad council shall be founded on truth, to be an everlasting plantation. We've seen that before, right? A holy house for Israel, and the foundation of the Holy of Holies for Aaron, true witnesses for the judgment, and chosen by the will of Elohim to atone for the land and to render the wicked their retribution. This Yahad is the tested rampart, the precious cornerstone that does not, whose foundations shake or tremble from their place. It will be the most holy dwelling. Okay, so verses 5 through 8 in the New Translation is actually read a little bit differently, and I just think it's important to point out. And it says, when such men as these come to be in Israel. So again, people are coming to be in Israel. That means they weren't in Israel before. They weren't included. So that's you and me, right? That's those of us. Then shall the party of the Yahad truly be established, an eternal planting. Right? What's the eternal planting? Right? The rod. Remember that? Okay, so an eternal planting, a temple for Israel, and mystery, a holy of holies for Aaron, true witnesses to justice, chosen by Elohim's will to atone for the land and to recompense the wicked their due. They will be the tested wall, the precious cornerstone, whose foundations shall neither be shaken nor swayed, a fortress, a holy of holies for Aaron, all of them knowing the covenant of justice and thereby offering a sweet savor. Sounds beautiful. Sounds beautiful to me. I'm going to go back down to verse 8 here. It says, it will be the most holy dwelling for Aaron with eternal knowledge of the covenant of justice, and in order to offer a pleasant aroma. And it will be a house of perfection and truth in Israel, in order to establish a covenant in compliance with the everlasting decrees. So these words that are being used are everlasting, forever, eternal. This is a group of people who believed in all of these eternal things, right? And these will be accepted in order to atone for the land and to decide the judgment of the wickedness in perfect behavior, and there will be no iniquity. When these have been established in the foundation of the community, or Yahad, for 2 full years in perfect behavior, they will be segregated, like holy ones, in the midst of the council of men of the community. And every matter hidden from Israel, but which has been found out by the interpreter, he should not keep hidden from them for fear of a spirit of desertion. So who is the interpreter? I think I would point to John the Baptist, right? I believe that this is talking about him. And the reason why, let's just read the next part. And when these have become a community in Israel, in compliance with these arrangements, they are to be segregated from within the dwelling of the men of sin, to walk in the desert in order to open there his path. The interpreter, John the Baptist, as we know him, we know that he was walking in the desert, and we know that he was clearing the path. So these folks are also talking about prophecy of John coming out to prepare the way. Let's read. As it is written in Isaiah 40, verse 3, in the desert, prepare the way of blank. Straighten in the steep a roadway for our Elohim. We know that was in reference to the one who is going to prepare the way for our Messiah. This is a study of the law, which he commanded through the hand of Moses, in order to act in compliance with all that has been revealed from age to age, and according to what the prophets have revealed through his holy Ruach. And any one of the men of the Yahad, the covenant of the Yahad, who insolently shuns anything at all commanded, cannot approach the pure food of the men of holiness, and cannot know anything of their counsels until his deeds have been cleansed from every depravity, walking in perfect behavior. Then they can include him in the council under the authority of the many. And later they will enroll him according to his rank. And they shall apply this regulation to all who enter the community. Wow. Okay. Column 8, at this next section here. These are the regulations by which the men of perfect holiness shall conduct themselves one with another. All who enter the council of holiness, of those walking in perfect behavior as he commanded, any one of them who breaks a word of the law of Moses impertinently or through carelessness will be banished from the community council and shall not return again. None of the men of holiness should associate with his goods or his advice or any matter. However, if he acted through oversight, he should be excluded from pure food and from the council, and they shall apply the following regulation to him. He may not judge anyone, and he may not be asked to any advice for 2 whole years. Well, that's a big undertaking. So if you defame the group, talk out against the group, you do something that is careless, no one should go to you for advice for 2 years. And I think I mentioned it before in the first part. Who are we getting our information from? Are we getting our information from valid sources, people who are actually living it, walking the walk, right? We need to be observant of where we're getting our advice from. If his conduct is perfect in the session, in the investigation, and in the council, according to many, if he has not sinned again through oversight until 2 full years have passed, I guess that was the end of that one. Now, so we don't have the end, unfortunately, it just stopped very briefly. So sometimes that happens with our fragments. All right, we are in column 9. This column is actually the same as chapters 20 and 21 in the order, just to let you know if you wanted to catch up over there. Let's take a look. Because for blank, one sin of oversight, he shall be punished 2 years. But whoever acts impertinently shall not return again. Only someone who sins through oversight shall be tested for 2 full years with respect to the perfectness of his behavior and of his counsel according to the authority of many, and shall then be enrolled according to his rank in the community of holiness. So we just saw here in column 8, and it almost seems like it could mix with column 9. They're 2 different, it seems like 2 different thoughts, but it almost seems to go together. So this person was, not being allowed to give advice for the 2 years, right? And then it goes over here talking about somebody being punished for 2 years. So it's very similar. It could be talking about the same thing. It's just a different column. Kind of like starting in another chapter, but continuing the same thought. Only someone who sins through oversight shall be tested for 2 full years with respect to perfectness of his behavior and of the council according to the authority of many, and shall then be enrolled according to his rank in the community of holiness. When these exist in Israel, in accordance with these rules, in order to establish the spirit of holiness and truth, eternal, in order to atone for the guilt of the iniquity and for the unfaithfulness of a sin, and for approval for the earth, without the flesh of burnt offerings and without the fats of sacrifice. The offering of the lips in compliance with this decree will be like the pleasant aroma of justice, and the perfectness of behavior will be acceptable like a free will offering. So here they're saying that, in the way that I'm interpreting it, we're not giving any burnt offerings and sacrifices right now. Right now, we need your sacrifice by your words. We need to hear it from you, and we need to see it in your behavior. At that moment, the men of the community shall set apart a holy house for Aaron in order to form a most holy community, and a house of the Yahad for Israel, those who walk in perfection. Only the sons of Aaron will have the authority in the matter of judgment and of goods, and their word will settle the lot of all provision for the men of the community, and the goods of the men of holiness who walk in perfection. Their goods must not be mixed with the goods of the men of deceit who have not cleansed their path to separate from injustice and walk in a perfect behavior. So I'm going to go back here. Again, this is the sons of Aaron. They're the ones who are supposed to be in charge of financial matters. And this type of situation goes to them. All right. Let's see here. So they should not depart from any counsel of the law in order to walk in complete stubbornness of their heart, but instead shall be ruled by the first directives. The New Translation says the original precepts. That means the original law. So it's stating that these people need to go back to the original laws. Obviously, these people were following new laws that were being created by their Sanhedrin, their rabbis, right? But these are people who need to go back to the first decrees. Which of the men of the community began to be taught until the prophet comes and the messiahs of Aaron and Israel. These are the regulations for the instructor by which he shall walk with every living being in compliance with the regulation of every period, in compliance with the worth of each man. He should fulfill the will of God, Elohim, in compliance with all revelation for every period. He should acquire all the wisdom that has been gained according to the periods and the decree of the period. He should separate and weigh the sons of Zadok according to their spirits. So weigh them. Look at them. What is their behavior like? Are these people you want to follow? Are they being upright? He should keep hold of the chosen ones of the period according to his will. So grab onto these people who are following the way. Those are the people you want to connect with, right? That's what it's saying. Of every period, every era, there's going to be some people that we should be hanging on to. Because that's our community, our Yahad. As he has commanded, he should carry out the judgment of each man in accordance with his spirit. He should include each one according to the purity of his hands and according to his intellect promote him. And thus shall be in his love, and thus shall be his hatred. He shall not reproach or argue with the men of the pit. I really do think a lot of people forget this. We don't need to debate people who are never going to understand the way. We can plant seeds, but I really don't think debating and arguing with those people are really, it's not really going to do anything. It's not going to benefit you, right? So I think this is good advice, right? Let me reread it. He should carry out the judgment of each man in accordance with his spirit. So looking at his spirit. He should include each one according to the purity of his hands and according to his intellect. So is he researching? Is he looking into things? Is he studying? Is he in the Word? Is he in prayer? And thus shall be his love, and thus shall be his hatred. You can tell a lot about a person, right? He should not reproach or argue with the men of the pit, but instead hide the counsel of the law in the midst of the men of injustice. He should reproach with truthful knowledge and with just judgment those who choose the path, each one according to his spirit, according to the regulation of time. He should lead them with knowledge, and in this way teach them the mysteries of wonder and of truth in the midst of the men of the Yahad, so that they walk perfectly one with another in all that has been revealed to them. So this is sharing what we've learned with each other. That's how you build up your community, iron sharpening iron. This is a time for making ready the path to the desert, and he will teach them about all that has been discovered so that they can carry it out in this moment. And so they will be detached from anyone who has not withdrawn his path from all injustice. So you're picking sides, folks. You really are. You're really picking sides. Who you're going to be around, who you're going to listen to. And these are the regulations of behavior. And the New Translation says, these are the precepts of the way. For the inspector in these times concerning his love and his hatred, everlasting hatred for the men of the pit in clandestine spirit. To them he should leave goods and handmade items like a servant to his master, and like one oppressed before someone domineering him. He should be a man enthusiastic for the decree. The New Translation says, a zealot for Elohim's law, and for its time, for the day of revenge. We've seen this before. We want to be zealous for the law, right? He should perform Elohim's will in all that his hand should tackle, and in all that he controls, and as he commanded. And all that happens to him he should welcome freely, and be gratified by nothing except Elohim's will. He should relish all the words of his mouth, wish for nothing that he has not commanded, and be ever alert to the precept of Elohim. Always be on your guard. And in distress he shall bless his Creator, and in all that happens he shall recount blank, and with the offering of his lips he shall bless him. And this is kind of going into column 10 here, because I just continued the sentence. And he shall bless him during the periods of which Elohim decreed, at the commencement of the dominion of light, during its rotation and its retirement to its appointed abode. At the commencement of the vigils of darkness, when he opens his store and stretches them upward, and during its rotation, when it retires before the light. When the lights shine out of the holy vault, know what that's referring to, when they retire to the abode of glory. At the entry of the seasons in the days of the new months, together with their rotations during their stations, renewing each other. So we know they're talking about the luminaries here. It is a great day for the Holy of Holies and a sign of the opening of his everlasting mercies for the beginnings of the seasons in every future age. So, guys, this is a key here. Everything is the same. It's renewing every year, the exact same. All right. At the commencement of the months in their seasons, and of the holy days in their sequence, as a reminder in their seasons. With the offering of lips I shall bless him, in accordance with the decree recorded forever, at the commencement of the years and in the turning of their seasons, when the decree of their disposition is carried out on its prescribed day, one after another. The season of harvest up to summer, the season of seed time up to the seasons of grass, the seasons of years up to their 7-year periods. So we know that there is 7 years in each period, right? The New Translation here for verse 5 and 6 states, on the first of each month in its season, and on holy days laid down for a memorial in their seasons, by a prayer shall I bless him, a statute forever engraved. I don't know, again, why sometimes translators have something almost completely different than the other ones. But to me, this, it says it's engraved. Again, as I have spoken several times about the Zadok calendar, it can be engraved. It doesn't have to change. It is repeatable, and it repeats the exact same way every year. So it can be engraved. It's not like you have to throw out the engraving each year. No, it's the same thing every year. And so I think that this is really confirmation for those people who are thinking that their calendar should change or that there's some, some differences every year. No, our feast days are on the same day every year. They don't change. They're engraved. All right. So, our ancestors believed that it was forever. The calendar was fixed and it didn't move, just like this vault up here that they're talking about, right? We know they also believed in the vault or the firmament, right? So our ancestors knew of the stations of the months. They knew Enoch, right? So verse 5 and 6 is discussing the memorial days at the beginnings of the months. And we don't hear about a lot of these memorial days. So this is talking about in the beginnings of the months, right? The book of Jubilees is the other book that tells us to remember these days. It tells us that those are days of remembrance. These were the integral parts of Noah's journey that were laid out for us. And here we have the Zadokites describing this time being kept the same way Jubilees is, with the 7 days, right? And the remembrance days at the beginnings of the months. It's only found in one book, right? We have the stations and the luminaries, just as described in the book of Enoch. So these men believe that Jubilees and Enoch were scripture. They're not speaking anything new here. This is stuff that they've grown up on. They've grown up reading these. Let's go to verse 8. At the commencement of the 7-year periods, the New Translation says, when the weeks of the years begin, jubilee by jubilee, up to the moment decided for deliverance. So I think it's interesting that New Translation actually mentions jubilee as these 7-year periods, right? When the weeks of the years begin. And if you're interested and you don't know a lot about the Jubilees weeks and years, that's one of my very first videos that I ever made. So you can have a look at my Excel spreadsheet that I have started to do when I started reading Jubilees and putting things in a timeline fashion. Now, I'll just let you know now that it's not complete. I'm still adding to it all the time, but that was where I was when I presented it at that time. But have a look at that and how time was kept based on Enoch and Jubilees. All right. And in all my existence, the precept will be engraved on my tongue to be a fruit of eulogy and a portion of offering of my lips. I shall tune. I'm not so sure about. It just kind of stops right there. It says, I shall tune. But this one says, I will sing with the knowledge, and for the glory of Elohim shall all my music be, the playing of my harp according to his holy order, and the whistle of my lips I shall tune to its correct measure. At the onset of day and night I shall enter the covenant of Elohim. And when evening and morning depart, I shall repeat his precepts. Oh, where does he mention here first? He mentions evening, then morning, and he says, then I will repeat it. Oh, you guys, this is more information about evening to evening being our 24th day. This is just another insert right here for you. All right. And their existence I shall set my limit without turning away. I acknowledge his judgment to be right according to my pervertedness. My sins are before my eyes, like an engraved decree. To Elohim I shall say my justice, and to the Most High, establisher of my well-being, source of knowing, spring of holiness, peak of glory, all-powerful one of eternal majesty. I shall choose what he teaches me. I shall be pleased in how he might judge me. When I start to stretch out my hands and my feet, I shall bless his name. When I start to go out and to come in, To sit and to stand up, and lying down in my bed, I shall extol him. I shall bless him with the offering that issues from my lips in the row of men. And I wanted to point out the fact that this is so that I highlighted that part. And it reminded me of Psalms 139, 1. It says, "O Yahweh, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You searched out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with my ways. Even before the word is on my tongue, behold, O Yahweh, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, and I cannot attain it." It just sounds beautiful, right? This is what I think they're saying here. It definitely sounds a lot like what they're saying. Every time I get up, I want to praise your name. I want to praise your name in my comings and my goings. That's what it sounds like they're saying here. Okay, verse 15. "And before stretching out my hand to get fat on the tasty fruit of the earth, at the onset of my fright and dismay, and in the place of distress and grief, I shall bless his name for his great marvels, and shall meditate on his power, and shall rely on his compassion the whole day." So again, that definitely reminds me of that Psalms. "I realize that in his hand lies the judgment of every living thing, and all his deeds are truth." So when it says here in 15, talking about before I get fat on the fruit, right? So before I eat, it just reminded me, of praying before eating, to always give him praise for what's at our table, right? I know I used to do that, and I had it as a really great habit, and I even taught my children to do it. But after so long, I don't, sometimes, the family starts eating separately when people are coming and going, and don't always sit down at a family table to eat, and I just forgot about it. And, I had to pick it back up and remind my family to pick it back up. Just because we're not sitting at the dinner table all together doesn't mean we can't pray before we eat, and it doesn't have to be seen. You can just bow your head and pray for your food. But I know kind of going off track, but it just reminded me of that here, to pray in every part of our day, when we get out of bed, when we go, and we stand up, when we stretch out our hand when we're about to eat. It's important. Okay. "When distress is unleashed, and I shall praise him, just as I shall sing to him for his deliverance. I shall not repay anyone with an evil reward. With goodness I shall pursue man. For to Elohim belongs the judgment of every living being, and it is he who pays man his wages. I shall not be jealous with a wicked spirit. My soul shall not crave wealth by violence. I shall not sustain angry resentment for those who convert, or shall be involved or in dispute with the men of the pit, until the day of vengeance." I know that kind of sounded broken up a little bit, but sometimes they add words that they think are in that section, and so I'll just read it as they had it there. So don't get involved with the men of the pit. We know who those people are. "However, my anger I shall not remove from unjust men, nor shall I be appeased until he carries out his judgment. I shall not sustain angry resentment for those who convert from iniquity, but I shall have no mercy for all those who deviate from the path." So that's kind of saying the same thing in 19 as they're saying in 20 here. It almost seems like they're repeating themselves, just using different words. The New Translation states, "I shall hold no angry grudge against those repenting of sin, yet neither shall I love any who rebel against the way." I really like that. I believe I call myself a follower of the way, so anytime I see that, I'm really excited. "I shall not comfort the oppressed until their path is perfect. I shall not retain Belial within my heart. From my mouth shall not be heard foolishness or wicked deceptions. Sophistries or lies shall not be found on my lips. The fruit of holiness will be on my tongue. Profanity shall not be found on it. With hymns shall I open my mouth, and my tongue will continually recount both the just acts of Elohim and the unfaithfulness of men until their iniquity is complete. So, this is where Torah is spoken of, and we are to have good judgment. We are to stand upright, to love our enemies, those who come against us, right? So it can be tough love, right? But we have to be cautious again. Who we're with, who are we fellowshipping with, right? And how are we acting towards those who are acting horribly towards us? Oh, repay good, right? We need to be on good standing. The Father is going to judge them. That's what it's saying. Father is going to judge them. Sometimes we have to put space between us and those who are these type of people, men of the pit, people who bring you down, right? I shall remove from my lips worthless words, unclean things, and plotting from the knowledge of my heart. With prudent counsel I shall hide, or I shall recount. See, again, it's just stating that they might have two different interpretations here. So, with prudent counsel I shall hide, or I shall recount, or knowledge and the discretion of knowledge I shall enclose him with a solid fence to maintain faithfulness and staunch judgment according to the justice of Elohim. I shall share out the regulation of the cord of the ages and blank justice and compassionate love with the oppressed, and to strengthen the hands of the dismayed. Column 11. It kind of seems that column 11, let's see here. I'm going to start back at 25 here. It says, I shall share out the regulation with the cord of the ages, blank, justice and compassionate love with the oppressed, and to strengthen the hands of the dismayed, understanding to those, kind of sounds like it goes together, kind of doesn't. Understanding to those with a stray spirit, and to instruct in the teaching of those who complain, to reply with meekness to the haughty of spirit, and with a broken spirit to the men of the bending of the law. So here are men of the bending of the law. How many of those people do we know? People who bend the law to make it fit their ways, right? Okay. Those who point the finger and speak evil and are keen on riches. As for me, to Elohim belongs my judgment. In his hand is the perfection of my behavior, with the uprightness of my heart. And with his just acts he cancels my iniquities. For from the source of his knowledge he has disclosed his light, and my eyes have observed his wonders, and the light of my heart and the mystery of existence. What always is support for my right hand. The path of my steps goes over firm rock. It does not waver before anything. For the truth of Elohim is, and they don't have a word there, the rock of my steps, and his might the support of my right hand. From the spring of his justice is my judgment, and from the wonderful mystery is the light in my heart. My eyes have observed what always is wisdom that has been hidden from mankind, knowledge and prudent understanding, or hidden from the sons of man, fount of justice and well of strength and spring of glory hidden from the assembly of the flesh. To those whom Elohim has selected, he has given them as everlasting possession, and he has given them an inheritance. The New Translation here says he has made them heirs in the legacy. So, and he has given them an inheritance in the lot of the holy ones. He unites their assembly to the sons of the heaven in order to form the council of the Yahad and a foundation of the building of holiness. The New Translation here says, with the angels has he united their assembly, a Yahad party, to be an everlasting plantation, or an eternal planting, throughout all future ages. However, I belong to evil humankind, to the assembly of unfaithful flesh. My failings, my iniquities, my sins, blank, with the depravities of my heart, belong to the assembly of worms and of those who walk in darkness. For to man does not belong his path, nor can a human being steady his steps, since the judgment belongs to Elohim, and from his hand blank is the perfection of the path. By his knowledge everything shall come into being, and all that does exist he establishes with his calculations, and nothing is done outside of him. The New Translation here states, surely a man's way is not his own, neither can any person firm his own step. Surely justification is of Elohim. By his power is the way made perfect. All that shall be, he foreknows. All that is, his plans establish. Apart from him is nothing done. So the New Translation here says it much better, in my opinion. So we're familiar with words such as heirs and angels and Yahad, and we know that there is an eternal planting, right? We know that that is the root of Jesse, right? Apart from nothing, that's the part I like here. Apart from him, nothing is done. So this is a very familiar verse. So Proverbs 16:9 says, the heart of man plans his way, but Yahweh establishes his steps. And then we have John 15:5 states, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. And there's also Jeremiah 10:23 states, I know, O Yahweh, that the way of man is not in himself. That is not in man who walks to direct his steps. And then I have Psalms 37:23 says, the steps of a man are established by Yahweh when he delights in his way. So his path is the best path to take, right? The way. As for me, if I stumble, the mercies of Elohim shall be my salvation always. And if I fall in the sin of the flesh, in the justice of Elohim, which endures eternally, shall my judgment be. If my distress commences, he will free my soul from the pit and make my steps steady on the path. He will draw me near in his mercies, and by kindness set in motion my judgment. He will judge me in the justice of his truth, and in his plentiful goodness always atone for my sins. In his justice he will cleanse me from the uncleanness of the human being and from the sin of the sons of man, so that I can give Elohim thanks for his justice and the highest for his majesty. This sounds right in line with scriptures, doesn't it? So anyone who says that this community is speaking anything other than what it is, they haven't done enough studies into this. Let's listen to, I have 2 slides left, I believe. This sounds really pretty. Yes, I say pretty. Blessed be you, my Elohim, who opens the heart of your servant to knowledge. Establish all his deeds in justice, and raise up the son of your handmaid, and stand everlastingly in your presence, as you have cared for the selected ones of humankind. For without you no behavior is perfect, and without your will nothing comes to be. You have taught all knowledge, and all that exists is so by your will. Beyond you, there is no one opposed to your counsel, to understand any of your holy thoughts, to gaze into the abyss of your mysteries, to fathom all your marvels or the strength of your might. Who can endure your glory? What indeed is the Son of Man among all your marvelous deeds? as what shall be one born of woman be considered in your presence. Shaped from dust has he been. Maggots' food shall be his dwelling. He is spat saliva, molded clay, and for dust is his longing. What will the clay reply, and the one shaped by hand? And what advice will he be able to understand? We are nothing without him. Nothing. A legal finding for the instructor concerning the men of the law who volunteer. Remember, this is you guys. They are to repent from all evil and to hold fast to all that he has commanded. Not what the rabbis have commanded, what he has commanded. They are to separate from the congregation of perverse men. They are to come together as one with respect to the law and wealth. Their discussions shall be according to the majority rule regarding all matters of the law and money. They are to practice humility, charity, justice, loving kindness, and modesty in all their ways. Accordingly, none will continue in a willful heart and thus be seduced. Rather, they are to establish a foundation of truth for Israel, a Yahad for all those in Aaron who volunteer for holiness, a house of truth for Israel and for Gentile proselytes who join them in community. Again, this is an elite group, yes, but anybody can join if their heart's in the right place. Every initiate into the party of the Yahad is taken upon himself a binding oath to return to the law of Moses with all his heart, we've heard this before, with all his mind, to all that has been revealed from the law according to the party of the men of the Yahad. Each is to separate himself from the waters used by the men of holiness, and one shall not eat with such a man. None of the men of the Yahad is to discuss with such men matters of the law or legal judgment. And again, we've spoken of that before. There are certain people who are never going to understand this. We can try to plant a seed, but we shouldn't sit and argue with them because these matters are for us, not for them. And you can lay that foundation. You can try to plant that seed because maybe that person will eventually. But to argue, to debate with them, I disagree with that. And so do these guys. None is to be yoked with such a man in his wealth or work, nor any man of the men of holiness eat from their wealth, nor yet take anything from them. They shall not depend on any of the works of vanity, for vanity defines all who do not know his covenant. This is for all those who know his covenant or want to know his covenant, right? All those who despise his word, he shall destroy from upon the face of the earth. Their deeds are an abomination before him, all that is theirs being infested with impurity. So we know that this was introduced to us from Elijah, right? We know that this group, this Yahad, left the commonwealth of Jerusalem to continue the path for the way and take on the instructions that were initially given to Elijah, right? We know that John the Baptist went to this community that was in isolation. This group chose not to mingle with outsiders for a reason. They concentrated on their studies and living righteously. The only difference that John had was that he had a different calling than those gentlemen. He was called to go out into that desert, into the wilderness, and prepare the way. He was the one, the instructor. So he did leave this community, and, they said they found him pretty poor, right? They found him scruffy looking. He was still following the ways that were described in this community rule. But what he had differently from them is that he chose to go out of the community to prepare the way. He had done his studies. He had been there for quite some time, from my understanding. And he was ready to go out and to let us know about the fact that we are invited to be part of this. That was column 11 if you're following along, and this was 1QS. My apologies. Got a little confused there. All right, so I believe that was the last one. All right, great. So we did get through it. A lot less time this time around. All right, so we have this community rule, this writings of Elijah, order of the ancients. We have some scrolls that are scattered that some translators put together, some didn't, so I was confused there. My apologies. This took a long time for me to navigate through because I was trying to gather information from other resources, and some connected all of those and some did not. And I just, again, chose the Wise Abag and Cook because they seem to understand the grasp or to grasp the meaning of putting these together, and it flows so much better. And I do think that they all work together really well. So while I know that I mostly just read through it, I did give you some of my connections to scriptures, and I just really wanted to show you that the Zadokites were not teaching something different. They weren't teaching something foreign. They were teaching the same thing that we've learned in our scriptures. They're upholding the laws, and they were promoting the truth. So if you want to learn more about the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think that you should just take a look at my playlist. I have been picking scrolls that I find are pretty important. There's a lot that I might not cover, but it's because they either have too few of fragments to go by, or it just doesn't add up to anything that I can really share. And I share those other tidbits on my page when I post daily. I try to present ones that might not be taught in a presentation. So take a look at my playlist. I do have other Dead Sea Scrolls that I've gone over. And again, these are great to just listen to if you're unable to watch, but I encourage you to study these out, not just read it like a book, but study them out. Learn about those who wrote these scrolls and kept them safe for this future generation, right? It's not something that just needs to be put on the shelf. You know, a lot of people will get the Dead Sea Scrolls just to put on their shelf, right? Or to look up a couple things here and there. These scrolls have lost scriptures in them. They have hidden prophecies that need to be revealed in these last days. So I encourage you to share, and share. All right? Help me bring it back and help me fight for truth. Be blessed, everyone.